She burst into the clinic barefoot, crying for help, her baby limp in her arms. "Nurse, please, my baby, he's not breathing well."
The shack was barely more than 4 rusted sheets of metal nailed together with desperation. It stood like a forgotten skeleton at the edge of a crowded slum in the outskirts of Lagos, where the air smelled of hot dust, smoke, and stale sweat. Inside, Margrate cradled her baby boy, no more than a few weeks old, wrapped in a faded piece of Ankara cloth she'd found in someone's trash. His breaths were faint and shallow, his cries weak, like whispers of pain too heavy for such a tiny soul.
Margrate was only 22, but life had aged her eyes. They were wide, sunken, always scanning for help, for food, for hope. Every morning, she strapped the baby to her back and stepped out into the chaos, roaming the markets, the bus stops, the traffic-filled roads, begging strangers with soft eyes and firm voices. Some days, the kindness of a bread seller or a tired office worker filled her small nylon bag with enough to last the day. Other days, she returned empty-handed, shoulders slumped, mouth dry from pleading.
Inside that shack, the roof leaked when it rained. Mosquitoes hummed like angry spirits. Rats scratched in the corners at night. But the worst was watching her baby cry with hunger and having nothing, absolutely nothing to offer. And so, every night, after the baby finally cried himself to sleep, Margrate knelt beside his makeshift crib, just an old fruit basket lined with shirts, and whispered up to the heavens. Her voice cracked from the weight of her pleas. "God, I don't need much. Just save us, please. Just one miracle."
The silence that followed was always the same, heavy, endless, but still she prayed. Because when you've lost everything, faith is the only thing you can afford to hold on to. The night was colder than usual, an eerie chill creeping through the rusted cracks of the shack like an unwelcome spirit. Margrate had wrapped her baby in every cloth she owned, but it wasn't enough. Just past midnight, the baby stirred, then let out a sharp cry. It wasn't like the others. This one was raw, piercing, and it wouldn't stop. Then came the banging. First one wall, then another. "Make that child shut up," someone growled from outside. "People, they sleep, oh," another voice shouted. Tears stung Margrate's eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though no one could hear her. "Please, just stop crying, my love, please." But the baby didn't stop. By the time the sky began to turn grey, Margrate's arms ached, her back stiff from pacing. She slipped on her worn slippers, wrapped the baby tight against her chest, and began walking toward the nearest health center, 3 miles away. Her legs felt like they were made of wood. The streets were waking up, hawkers setting up, buses honking, but she barely noticed. She just walked, the baby now whimpering softly, almost out of strength. At the clinic, she waited an hour before someone saw her. A young nurse took the baby, ran a few checks, and then looked at Margrate with tired eyes. "He's severely malnourished," the nurse said quietly. "He needs proper nutrition fast." It was like someone had punched Margrate in the chest. Her knees gave out, and she dropped to the floor weeping. She had no money, no food, no plan, only a dying child in her arms, and the crushing realization that love alone couldn't keep him alive. 2 days had passed since the clinic visit, and nothing had changed, except the baby's cries had grown weaker. His eyes no longer followed Margrate's movement. He just lay there, tiny chest rising and falling like a whisper. She hadn't eaten either. Her lips were cracked, her stomach a hollow drum. Hunger clawed at her, but her baby's suffering was louder. She sat by the doorway of the shack, staring at the morning sun, hopeless and numb. Then she overheard 2 women gossiping outside. "You know that place in Lekki Phase 1, that big restaurant near Admiralty?" one said. "Them they chop food away like sand. Leftovers wey feed 10 people." Margrate's ears perked, her heart skipped. Food, leftovers, Lekki Phase 1. It was like hearing a door creak open in a pitch-black room. She stood slowly, unsure if she was thinking straight. The distance was far. She had no transport fare, no connections, no one to help.
But what was the worst that could happen? She had already seen her baby slip toward death. If she stayed, he would die. If she left, he might live. That afternoon, she filled a plastic bucket with cold water and bathed quickly, teeth chattering. She cleaned the baby gently, whispering, "We are going to find help today, okay? Just hold on."
She had no proper clothes, just a worn dress and old slippers. She wrapped the baby in the only cloth warm enough and held him close. Her hands trembled, her knees felt weak, but her will had never been stronger. Tear-soaked but determined, she stepped out onto the dusty road. Lekki felt like another world away, but she would walk through fire to get there. Because when a mother has nothing left, hope becomes her final weapon. When Margrate finally reached Lekki Phase 1, her feet were blistered and her dress clung to her with sweat and dust. But when she saw the restaurant, her breath caught. It was like something from a dream. Glass doors that sparkled like crystal. Silver cars with tinted windows lined up like royalty had come to dine. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved inside with poise. It was a world that had never once belonged to her.
She stood outside, gathering courage. Then she stepped forward. Hey, where do you think you're going?" The security guard backed, already charging toward her. Margrate paused, heart pounding. "Please, sir, I'm not here to cause any trouble. My baby and I haven't eaten in days. Please, I just need a little food. Leftovers, anything." The guard looked her up and down with disgust. "You dey mad? You think say this place na soup kitchen? See your dirty clothes. You won't disgrace this place." She flinched, clutching her baby closer, who stared weakly against her chest. Her voice broke. "Please, my baby is sick. I don't want money, just food. Please." By now, people had started watching. A few customers waiting by their cars pulled out their phones, recording. One young woman laughed softly. "Is this Nollywood or real life?"
But Margrate didn't care about the stares. She didn't care about the shame. Hunger had burned that away. Pride had long since drowned in tears. She dropped to her knees. "Please," she whispered, "help me. My child hasn't eaten. I haven't eaten. Just one plate, one scrap." The guard stepped closer, ready to shove her away again. But Margrate didn't move. She was a wall of desperation, and no humiliation could break her now. Just as the security guard reached to yank Margrate away from the entrance, the glass doors of the restaurant slid open with a gentle hiss. Out stepped a tall, sharply dressed man in a navy blue suit, dark sunglasses resting on his nose, and a small takeout bag swinging from his hand. It was Mr. Raymond, the billionaire no one expected to see without a convoy or cameras. He had come quietly today, avoiding attention, but attention was exactly what he got.
He slowed his steps. When he saw the commotion by the gate, the security guard froze mid-motion. "Sir, good afternoon," the guard greeted quickly, straightening up. Raymond did not reply. His gaze had already shifted to the woman on the floor, Margrate. Her face was streaked with tears, her dress torn at the shoulder, her baby limp against her chest. She didn't even notice who he was at first. She only saw the food in his hand. "Please," she whispered, falling fully to her knees. "Please, sir, we haven't eaten. Just the leftovers. Please, anything." Raymond stared at her, stunned. The voice, the posture, the look in her eyes. He'd seen it before. Not here, not now. Flashback. He was 6 years old again. The room smelt of kerosene and unwashed clothes. His mother sat in the corner of their one room face me, I face you, sobbing into her wrapper after their landlord threw them out for unpaid rent. He had clutched her arm, confused, hungry, helpless. She had tried to stay strong, but he'd seen it. That look, the same look Margrate now wore, a look of a woman breaking but refusing to shatter. Back in the present, the security guard reached toward Margrate again. "Leave her," Raymond said sharply, his voice cold, firm. The security guard stepped back instantly. Raymond reached for Margaret's arm with a quiet firmness, lifting her gently from the concrete. She staggered slightly, disoriented, her legs weak from hunger and the emotional weight of the moment. Her eyes remained glued to the small bag of food he held, as though it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. He handed it to her without hesitation, but his gaze didn't leave her face. There was something in her sunken cheeks and hollow eyes that unsettled him deeply. He studied her for a moment, her trembling form, the way she clutched the silent baby to her chest like a fragile treasure. He asked for her name,
her location. She spoke softly, nervously, barely audible over the hum of passing cars and murmuring onlookers. Every answer seemed to weigh heavier on him than the last.
Something shifted in his expression. His jaw tightened, his brow furrowed. He was no longer just a bystander in a viral spectacle. He was a man stepping into a responsibility he couldn't ignore. His next move was decisive. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, a luxury SUV pulled up beside the restaurant's curb. Margrate stood frozen as the door opened. She hesitated only for a moment before stepping in, still gripping the food bag and cradling her baby with her free arm. The ride through the city felt unreal. The smooth leather seats, the silence of the vehicle, the cool breeze from the AC. It all felt like a dream stitched together by exhaustion and disbelief. At the private hospital, uniformed nurses rushed toward them. The baby was taken from her arms and wheeled away with urgency. A doctor appeared almost instantly, directing a flurry of activity: IV drips, nutritional fluids, scans. Margrate stood in the hallway, her body swaying slightly, watching through a glass window as strangers fought to save the one thing she had left in the world. Hours passed before the doctor returned with news. The baby would survive. Immediate care had stabilized him and he would recover with proper nutrition. Raymond paid the full medical bill without question. For him, it wasn't charity. It was a reckoning. After days in the hospital, surrounded by sterile white walls and the constant beeping of machines, something shifted in Margaret's world. Her baby, once limp and barely breathing, now kicked softly beneath warm blankets, cheeks rounder, color slowly returning to her skin. Each day, she sat by his side in awe, whispering prayers of gratitude she never thought she'd say. When discharge day came, Raymond didn't disappear. Instead, he returned with a quiet proposal, one that left her speechless. He had arranged for a temporary apartment, fully paid for, a place she and her son could rest, recover, and rebuild. It wasn't a palace, but it was clean, safe, and unlike anything she had ever called home. The idea terrified her. Nothing in her life had come without a catch. She hesitated, unsure if kindness this pure could be real. But there was no catch, no hidden terms, just a man with a haunted past and a heart that understood the weight of hers. The apartment was a modest 2-bedroom, with fresh paint, soft bedding, and stocked kitchen. A welcome basket waited on the table. Baby clothes, diapers, formula, sanitary pads, and a note from the foundation. It felt unreal. She opened every cabinet, touched every wall, blinking away tears each time. In the following days, a nurse visited regularly to help her with postnatal care. Volunteers arrived with more baby supplies and cooked meals. A counselor stopped by once a week to speak with her, not at her. For the first time, Margrate wasn't surviving, she was living. Then came the next step: opportunity. Raymond's women-focused NGO offered her a part-time job as an assistant in their office. She filed papers, answered calls, cleaned desks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. She wore it like armor. Soon after, she enrolled in tailoring classes. Fabric became her escape. She stitched and learned, hands moving with growing confidence. On weekends, she joined a small group learning how to save, budget, and one day start a business. She wasn't just mending fabric, she was sewing a new life, thread by thread. The street girl with torn slippers was gone. In her place stood a woman rediscovering her worth. Months passed, and with each sunrise, Margrate became someone new, someone she never imagined she could be. Her skin, once pale with fatigue, now glowed with warmth. Her eyes held light, not shadows. Her baby, once a frail whisper clinging to life, now laughed freely, arms chubby and full of energy. The apartment, once a stranger's gift, now bore her touch. Curtains she sewed herself, framed photos, the scent of home-cooked meals. She had become more than a survival. She was a woman with skills, with purpose, with savings stacked neatly in a small envelope tucked beneath her mattress. She no longer counted coins on the street corner. Now she counted the days between her next tailoring class and the growing list of clients who loved her designs. Raymond still visited from time to time, never with fanfare,
always quietly. He brought toys for the baby and food baskets she no longer depended on, but accepted with gratitude. He smiled every time he saw them, as if their joy reminded him that healing was a two-way road. His eyes lingered on the child, the boy who unknowingly reopened the door to a part of his heart he had long sealed shut. But Margaret didn't just grow for herself. She gave back. Slowly, other single mothers in the slum began coming to her. Some sat with tears in their eyes, babies on their backs, stories heavy on their tongues. Margaret didn't judge. She listened. She encouraged. She showed them how to apply for the same programs, how to stretch a little into enough. She helped them believe again. On Sundays, she sometimes stood before small gatherings in churches and women's groups. Her voice was soft but steady as she told her story, one of pain, persistence, and divine timing. Not a fairy tale, but a journey. People often called her lucky, but she knew better. She was proof that the smallest act of compassion can shift a destiny. The real miracle wasn't just food or shelter. It was being seen, being believed in when the world had written her off. Because sometimes all it takes to rebuild a life is for one person to choose empathy over indifference. If you found this story touching, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, drop a comment, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Your support helps keep stories like this alive, and you never know who might be encouraged by hearing it.
you. you you.